Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollins High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Hey guys, in the last video we went over how to drop items out of our inventory using our keyboard setup. We set up a little key and we can of course drop items out and they don't stack on top of each other, which is kind of nice. In this one, we're going to look at how to do this with the mouse so that we can click and drag and move items around. It's a little bit more complex, but you'll see how it's done. Let's go ahead and close this. And inside of here, we have this if keyboard check for our key. We're going to go ahead and go underneath that. So I'm going to grab this little brace here. I'm going to go all the way down to that brace, the one that was highlighted. See that? And I'm going to make a new spot. I'm going to say drop item with mouse. And for this, I'm going to actually need the code that talks about the left and right boundaries of our inventory. So I'm going to go into our draw event here. So create event, draw event. I'm going to scroll all the way up here to where we have this draw inventory background. And I'm going to go ahead and copy these variables. Grab those. Go back to our step event. I'm just going to go ahead and paste them just under the drop item little text there. That'll work. And then I'll go back down into my loop here. I'm going to come down into my piece where I said drop item with mouse. And the first thing I want to do is check the left and right boundary of the mouse. So I'm going to say if mouse underscore x, and I'm going to check the left and right boundary. So I need so x1 is the left position, and x2 is the far right position. y1 is the top position, and y2 is the bottom position. If mouse x is greater than x1 and mouse x is less than x2 and mouse y is greater than y1 and mouse y is less than y2, then we're going to look inside and run this code. Alright, so inside of here, once we check if we're inside the inventory, we want to check what buttons we're pressing, if we're doing left mouse click or right mouse click. But we also want to check, just like we did with our initial key press, we want to check to see if our inventory's cursor is over an empty spot. If not, then we're going to actually create an item. So down here, we're going to do the same thing. So let's first write our button. So I'm going to do if mouse check button. And I'm going to use mb underscore right. You can use the left mouse button if you want. And then inside of here, once we click the button, we want to make sure that the slot that we're on is actually empty. So if global dot inventory, and then inventory cursor x, inventory cursor y, not equal to item list dot empty. So if we're not on an empty slot, then we're going to do exactly the same thing we did here with this code. So I'm going to come up to this with instance create piece. I'm going to copy that into here. So copy that, and I'm going to paste that right into here. Clean it up a little bit. Except this time we're not just dropping this anywhere. We want it to drop next to our mouse. But let's see what happens when we run this as is. And of course I'll pick up a couple items, U and U. And if I'm in here and I use the V key, it drops the item where I want it to go. And if I come in here with the mouse and I right click, it drops it out. And it does sort of do the job. It's kind of having the same problem that we have with the player, where it's dropping it directly on the player and respawning inside of here. But I don't want to just drop it using the click. I want to be able to drag it and throw it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to jump to our actual mouse pointer instead. So in here, we're going to go to where it says Object Player, X and Y. We're going to do this as the mouse X. So mouse underscore X. And this will be the mouse underscore Y. So now it'll go to the mouse location. So I'll grab the object, and if I right click, you can see it jumps to my mouse location. Now it doesn't stay with the mouse, it only gets one update, but it does come out of the inventory. If I exit the inventory, you can see it's out of the inventory and I can pick it up again. The reason for it not following the mouse is, of course, it's not being updated to the mouse. And we need to do that to the actual object. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up and go to my object item pickup. We're going to write a little bit of code to talk directly to the mouse. So to do this, we actually need a variable that determines whether or not an item is attached to the mouse or not. So we're going to create a variable. So create event. I'm going to make a new variable called attach to mouse. And I'll say that that's false for now. Then I'll go back to the step event. I'll have a little comment that says check if attached to mouse. If attach to mouse is true, then we're going to have it set to the location of the mouse. So we'll say set location to mouse. X is equal to mouse X. Y is equal to mouse Y. Now this should work. However, we need to tell this to be attached to the mouse when the item is actually created from the inventory. So I'm going to go back to the object here. So object game step event, and then inside of our code here where it says with instance create, make sure you're inside the drop item with mouse. With instance create, right above this piece, we're going to say attach to mouse, and we're going to set that to true. So now when we right click on it, it should be attached to the mouse and it should follow the mouse position. So I'll go ahead and grab the item and I'll right click on it, and it does follow the mouse position. Now if I close the inventory, it's still attached to me. I don't want it to be attached to me when I close the inventory. I can't give it back to the player. Doop. But I can't get rid of it, right? So I want to be able to drop this out of the inventory after it's attached to me. So let's go back to the object here. Go back to object item pickup. And we're going to modify this code a little bit. I'm also going to make it so that the item is a little bit just off of the mouse here. So I'm going to do -3, y -3. That's just for aesthetics. But I also need to check when it is no longer attached to the mouse. And then we're going to set up a condition that checks for if we hit the mouse button while this object is alive, then it'll release the object. So we'll say if mouse button check, or is it mouse check button? Check button. MB underscore right. So if I hit the right mouse button, go ahead and put some braces here, then attach to mouse is false. Let's take a look and see if that works. So I'll pick it up and I'll grab it, and you can see that as I click it, it actually came undone, and if I let go, it's here. But there's a bit of a hiccup because the mouse button is being checked in two different places. It's actually checking a continuous run. So when I click it, even if I hold the mouse, it's always checking if it's been hit. Whoops. So what we need to do is in here, have this be a mouse button check pressed. And I'll do the same instead of our game object here. So this is if mouse button check pressed. So now if I pick it up and I grab it, and then I come out here and I click the mouse button again, I can let it go. But what if I wanted to pick it up and then put it back into the inventory? Well, I need to add a condition for that as well. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back into my object item pickup. And then in here, I actually need the boundaries of our inventory. I need to make sure that our mouse is within a slot of the inventory and is, of course, inside the inventory itself. So I know I'm bouncing around everywhere. I'm going to grab the go to the step event here. And actually, while I'm here, I'm going to grab the this loop part as well. I'm going to grab this loop to here because I will need the loop. Go back into my object item pickup, step event, and then inside of this mouse button check pressed, I'm going to paste some of the code. So I'm going to go ahead and hit paste. I'm going to keep the loops in here, but I'm going to take this code out of here. So take those variables out. I'm going to put those above this mouse statement. This little piece can be outside the loop. Go ahead and close those off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check these positions. Now remember that these positions here are inside the object game. So we need to tell this to look at the object game address. So obj underscore game dot. And all those need to be that. Object game, and that one's also an object game, that one too, and that one. So once we're inside of our loop here, let me go ahead and expand that. Once we're inside of our loop, we're going to actually check to see if the mouse is inside the inventory. So go ahead and title these. I'll say get inventory size, and then drop item. And this part will be if mouse x, of course, is greater than x1, and if mouse x is less than x2, and mouse y is greater than y1, and mouse y is less than y2. So if our mouse is inside the inventory, go ahead and wrap this. So if the mouse is inside the inventory, we're going to drop it into the inventory. Else, so right after this if statement, we're going to put an else. Else, it's no longer attached to the mouse. So inside here, once it checks the actual inventory location, we want it to check to see if the slot that we're over is available or not. So to do that, it's just like we did before. We're going to say if global.inventory, open brace, inv, oops, we're inside another object, so we have to say who we're talking to, so obj underscore game dot inv underscore cursor x, comma, obj underscore game dot inv cursor y. So if the position that we're in is equal to an empty spot, so equal to item list dot empty. So previously we checked to see if there was if the spot that we were on was not empty. This time we want to check to see if it is empty. If it is empty, then we're going to put an item in it. Before, when we did that, we created an object and we cleared the spot. This time we're going to add an item to the spot and then delete the object that we currently have. So we're going to go ahead and say global.inventory object game.inventory cursor x obj_game.inventory cursor y. And it helps if I type that correctly. inv cursor y. We'll get whatever our image index currently is. So image index. And then we're going to simply destroy the current object that we have. So instance destroy. So now we should be able to pick up an item and drop an item. Let's take a look. Go ahead and jump on this guy, and if I right click on it, I can of course move around. If I'm not in the inventory, I can drop it. If I'm in the inventory and I drop it, let's see what happens. Okay, so I get a bit of an error. I have the number of slots X not set before reading it. That's inside the object item pickup. That means I did not give the correct address to one of them. Looks right. Right here. So on the loops here, don't forget to put those, because these, of course, the num slots X, that belongs to the object game. Object_game dot. And then this one, obj_game dot. Let's try that again. So I pick up the object, and then I go over and I click. I should be able to put it back down. Pick it up, put it down. Pick it up, put it down. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. And if I grab a bunch of different objects, let's see if I can place them all in different places. So if I pick it up, I can put it down, pick it up, 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 put it down. And let's see if I can swap items. Yep, I can swap items. That's not a big deal. So if you want to pick up a different item, you can. And if I want to put these outside of the inventory, I can. And that's pretty simple. But what if I wanted it to have like a dynamic effect? Like instead of these objects here just floating arbitrarily in the world, what if I could just put them and they would like fall due to gravity? Well, that's pretty simple to set up. I'm going to go down here, and after this attach item to mouse piece, I'm going to do an else. So else, open some braces, and all I have to do is tell it that it can fall due to gravity, and to check for a collision vertically with a wall object. To do that, I need to set up the actual gravity function. So I'm going to say if Vx, or sorry, if Vy is less than max_grav. And I really should make this a global variable, but so I'll do that. I'll do global dot maxgrav, and then I'm going to say Vy is then plus equal to global dot grav. Now I'm using two different variables here. I have a maximum gravity value that we could not go over, and then I have a standard gravity value for how much I'm going to accelerate. So I'm going to go ahead and set those in just a moment. I also want to check to see if I'm going to collide with the wall. So call this piece run gravity. This one is going to be collide with walls. So if, same code that you'd put inside your player, so if place meeting x, y, obj underscore wall, and in my case I have a wall parent, so I'm going to use my wall parent. That way any wall object I use is going to be good. If you don't have a wall parent, then you can just do just a wall. Oh, this is going to be y plus the velocity y. And then while not place meeting x comma y plus the sign of vy obj underscore wall parent, then the y value is plus equal to the sign of vy, and then outside of that vy will be 0. And then lastly, once we're done with the collision function, we're going to update the y position of the object. So we'll say move item, and we're going to say y plus equal to vy. So that should run the code for that. We need to set up these two global variables. I'm going to put those inside of my object game here. So create event, just come to the top here, and I'm going to add two globals. So global dot grav, so my gravity value will be 3. Global dot max grav, that'll be 32. That way it looks like it accelerates due to gravity. Oh, we never gave the velocity y to our object item pickup. Let's go ahead and open that up. Object item pickup. In its create event, we do need to establish the velocity y. So I'm going to go ahead and do vy equals 0. So I'll grab that item, and then I will right-click on it, and if I come out here and I right-click, I can drop it. Pick it up, I can put it in the inventory, or I can drop it. Now there is something that I noticed earlier, which is this. If I grab an item and I go to place it in the world here, I can place it inside of a wall object, and you don't want to be able to do that, because that's kind of cruel to the player. So we're going to have it set, check to see if a position is free for the object as we place it. So I'm going to go back into this object here, step event, and so inside of our object item pickup here, I'm going to come down to where it says we have this if, mouse, x, and y, if we're inside the inventory, and then I have this else. I'm going to do an else if, and then I'm going to do place empty, x, comma, y. So else if place empty. So this is going to check against our object item pickup if there's an available space. If there is, then we can detach it. If there isn't, we're going to keep holding it. Let's see if that works. So I'll select the object, and you can see that I'm clicking here and I can't drop it, but if I'm out here, I can drop it. Pick those up, grab it, can't drop it anywhere around here, but if I'm out here, I can drop them. So that's how you can set up your mouse, so you can move items inside the inventory, you can relocate them, or you can drop them, and so on. So hopefully this has been educational for you. If you have any questions or comments, of course, you can feel free to leave them below, and don't forget to save your work. I will see you guys in the next video.